we're finishing the Holocaust. We are up to, I think, 1939, something like that. Okay. So here we go. We know, by the way, just for numbers purpose, for numbers' sake, 52 million people died in World War II. Okay. When you have war, people die. The tragedy of the Second World War was that 6 million Jews were murdered. All right, it wasn't an act of war, although the Germans would argue that it was an act of war. But really, it was an outright murder. If you were Jewish, you'd be killed. And out of those 6 million Jews, the count was 1.5 million were children. And the way that, just to get a little graphic here, the way they would kill some of the kids is the babies, they would pick them up and throw them against the wall. Okay, just to splatter them to see how far it could go. Okay, and it was a mass. They had a lot of experimentation. The ethical questions that come out of the Holocaust, which is not for this class, would be: can we use their research that they did for us today? That's a major ethical question that goes out. Maybe that's for a Wednesday night, for Jewish dilemmas, but not for now. But I'm just saying those are the questions that came out of that. The other question, the philosophical questions that came out of the Holocaust was: how could God, if God is omnipotent, blah, 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 so then how could God permit such a thing to happen? That's a Thursday night class at the Gatch Perplex. We're going to be speaking about Job tonight. So those who want to follow that, that will not be recorded. That's the one course that I don't record. But those are the questions that are dealt with by the Maimonides, Nachmanides, great thinkers like those who have already dealt with the problem of why bad things happen to good people. But those are the questions that came out of the Holocaust and still plague people to this day. Yeah.
Why don't you record it?
It's not, because it's too. It's not the class to record. Yeah, but it's also not the class to record. It's right at the end of the book already. So I don't. If you didn't get the first part, you're not going to get the last part in a proper understanding of it. But if you want to come tonight, you can come.
That's not what I come about.
No, that's why there's no quotes I haven't recorded. But it's just not the sort of class. And no matter what he would be speaking about, it's a very complicated book that you have to go through. So if you don't hear from the beginning, it's really not good to hear at the end. Okay. So also, I've already discussed this a little bit. When the Holocaust was going on, the immigration quotas did not increase, as it were, even though we needed a place to run. Nobody opened their borders. The United States did not allow more people during that time. Neither did Australia, nor Canada, nor any countries. There were most people had shut their borders by this point. There were frequent, long-winded discussions about the Jewish problem, but no one really did anything. And sooner or later, the Jews figured out that it was only God that could save them. Okay. Because they had put all their hope into these other countries, nothing was working. So, after when the full depth of the Nazi atrocities were revealed, that's when according to history, that's when Allied nations decided to take action. So in 1946, 21 Nazi leaders were tried by an international tribunal for the criminal acts of Germany. The Nuremberg trials were unprecedented, as they were the first such international trial for crimes committed against humanity. 11 Nazis were sentenced to be hanged. Only 10 were, because Göring took his own life with a cyanide pill. So 11 people were basically put to death, and that's only when everybody realized what was going on. That was mass guilt. Yeah, it was mass guilt. So they figured, we'll take 11 people, whoever we can, we'll try them, we'll kill them, and that should make us, everybody should be happy, right? Because we act as a society. No, it doesn't do anything.
But as an argument, they knew way before.
Yes. Yeah. They knew long before the deliberations. They knew long before that. People were told. As a matter of fact, it was in American newspapers what was going on before 38 and 39. It was in the papers, but where they put it? Last page. It wasn't frontline news. You had to look for it in the paper, but it was in the New York Times. It's documented. when people were looking, they said, because everybody claimed, nobody knew! And so people went through the papers and they found. New York Times wrote about it. Again, New York Times, last pages. It wasn't, it was where you wouldn't look. Okay, it wasn't front page. So, but there was certainly information out there for those who wanted to know. After World War II, there was a very large group of Jews who were homeless and stateless. My father's, as well as his brother and sister, their passport read country of origin, none.
How'd you get a passport?
It was just how they get it. They bought it like anything else. But they would give it the Chinese. I think that's where they got it from. That particular one. They just didn't list it said Germany didn't want them, so they said none. It's an amazing thing. And Germans also, because my uncle's middle name, which really wasn't his middle name, but on the passport it read, I think Saul. Like that. They were always Jewish people were either this or that, either Saul or Rachel, Abram or Rachel, whatever it was. I forget what the middle name was. But when I saw it, I said, "Your name isn't that." He said, "No, the Germans gave us this name." So right.
Everybody has that name.
So, but not that they kept it, of course.
Right.
But on the he never was called to Torah as on the Avram or something. But it was, but that's what they had. So he was. They were basically stateless. Some people tried to go to the countries where they came from, but they weren't welcome there either. And the non-Jews decided to kill them when they were gone. Not everybody. Certain people went back to their countries, and they were let to come back. But for the most part, the people who were there just didn't want them either. So they were really in a no-win situation. And by the way, why would they go back to Germany or wherever they were coming from? Because the land you know is the land you know. To go to another place, you didn't want to do that sort of a thing. But thank God my father didn't go back, and his family didn't go back, and they came to America. Without them coming here, they wouldn't have been born. I wouldn't be born. So, Baruch Hashem. Mm-hmm. But it's that's how it was. The two main things you should pull out of the Holocaust, because the Holocaust, to really have a course on the Holocaust, you would have to be here for a good year, and we would just scratch the surface of it in reality. Okay, it's a really hard thing to look at. There's a lot of stuff out there. Rolf Hilberg wrote a book about the destruction of European Jewry. It's a very thick book. Gives all of the statistics that you want. Lucy Davidovich also wrote a book, The War Against the Jews, where she explains that Hitler had two wars going on simultaneously, one against the world and one against the Jews. Okay, and he was more interested in winning the war against the Jews and making us simply a museum piece than to say he was the one who wiped us out than to do anything else. And that's, some people say that's why he lost the war, because he put so much effort into trying to kill the Jewish people. Okay, but yeah, there's two books you could look at to get a somewhat of a grounding in what's going on. If you want to see the American response, David Wyman wrote the book called Paper Walls, where he described. I had him actually as professor. Very nice guy. Not Jewish. He's none of these people are Jewish except for Lucy. Lucy, I think, is Jewish. But he wrote Paper Walls, and it was showing how the Americans did not want to help, did everything to avoid helping the Jewish people in Germany in the Holocaust. So it's called Paper Walls. So again, if anybody's really interested, those are three books that are I won't say an easy read, but they are certainly one of the basic books that go out there, and they probably can refer you to more. There's so many more books out there, but those are the three that I remember because I actually read all of those three. Okay, but like I said, two things we should point out is the spiritual heroism of the Jewish people. Why? Because they maintained their spirituality, ethics, morals, and then even rebuilt a new life. Okay? There's a lot of people in my family, was 3/4 of them were killed, murdered straight out, okay? And yet my father, and with his family, came to the United States of America, and actually one of them went to Israel, and started another Jewish families there. Again, we're part of that growth. My wife's grandfather, but thank God, didn't lose any of his family, but they didn't know that. They thought they were all, because they were dispersed, so they didn't really know until after the war. But thank God, his mother has, I think 10 children. Some of them have since died because they're just old, but they all have kids. I think the family is like over 200. Okay, so from 2 people. So and they're religious. So Hitler by far didn't win. Thank God. Okay, we're still here to talk about it. And while he's in the ground and Germany is in shambles, we're still here to talk about it. And thank God we've survived. Okay, so that's just one of the miracles. And also, the other thing we have to recognize is there was a total indifference and even collusion among much of the world regarding the murder of the Jews of Europe. Okay, and that's all we can say about the Holocaust. There's a lot to speak about, but it just would take up a whole year. Okay, and more. So now we're talking about the rebirth of Israel, or the rebirth of the Jewish people too. So he said, so after the war, you have a rebirth of the spirit of the Jewish people in both the physical and spiritual realm. Before we talk about Israel, we're going to just look a little bit about what happened here in America. After the Second World War, the United States was a big player in building and a major player in the world. Remember, we're looking at communism. On the other side, we have democracy here. We have communism in the USS, as a former USS. I guess they former these days. Former USSR. And so what happened? The United States got into the financial debt. This is where we start. Because we wanted to economically rebuild Europe. Well, it wasn't because we felt any guilt for what had happened. No, it's because we want to have a wall against communism. If we get allies on our side, and before the communists start paying the other side, well, we're going to be that much better, right? We have to build ourselves up. So you have great German industrial companies like Krupp, IG Farben, and others who exploited Jewish and other slave labor. They were not prosecuted because they're necessary to rebuild the economy. Okay, so once they're necessary. So like I said, we can have 11 poster boys and we can put them up and kill them, but when it comes to money, come on. It's going to involve in business, Rabbi. We're not going to go that far. So now let's not forget, we had many Jews who were part of the Communist Party because they were in the USSR, or they heard about the Marxian idea of the workers rise up and will take over and so on and so forth. It sounded very nice, especially when you're being exploited the way you are, the way they were. So they had associated with that. And in 1950, you had Joe McCarthy and his Red Scare. Okay, all part of America's wonderful history. So anyone who had even a brief association with communists was questioned because they believed they were the fifth column. These people of communism going to take down the United States. So you have a lot of blacklisting people. For those who blacklist, you have John Garfield, who was best known for a Gentleman's Agreement and The Postman Always Rings Twice. I don't know these movies, but good luck if everybody does. Actually, I heard of the Gentleman's Agreement. Lillian Hellman, The Children's Hour and the Little Foxes. And this one I've heard of. Edward G. Robinson. Yeah. He was blacklisted too. I know he was blacklisted. It was interesting. He's Ten Commandments and Key Largo. I never heard of Key Largo. Ten Commandments I heard of. Then you also have the famous case of the Rosenbergs. Julius and Ethel Rosenberg in 1950 were arrested by the FBI. They were card-carrying members of the American Communist Party, which would have been enough to put them in jail anyway. But they were turned in by Ethel's brother, David Greenglass, and his wife. They got a lighter sentence. in return for helping the government, but Rosenbergs were killed. Okay, they were given death sentence and died by electrocution in '53. I think they were the only spies that, right? Most of them got out, but these people got killed. Okay.
What were they spying out exactly?
Secrets of the atom bomb.
There you go.
Secrets of the atom bomb.
There you go. Okay. It wasn't. It's like today's. You have what's his name? Pollard's the new poster boy for this sort of thing. Where Pollard was spying for Israel, a friend of America. Okay, and so normally his sort of crime would have netted him 5 to 7 years. They say he's been in jail for over 25 at this point. Okay, and so some people are saying it's anti-Semitism. Some Jews are saying that rotten hell because of what he did. So you have a real split about what Jonathan Pollard did. For whatever reason the government has, and the government always will say, if you knew what he did, that's what I'm saying, then you would want to keep him there too. Nobody really knows what the government knows, if anything, but as a result, he's rotting away in jail, and the odds are he'll never get out, because no president has wanted to give him pardon, and there's been many who could have at this point.
He's in prison here?
Yeah. So, United States of America.
He's from South Bend, right?
Yes. Okay. His father was a teacher in Notre Dame. May he rest in peace. He just died, I think, last year. The father. So now we start looking at what's going on in the United States. You have this growth that we talked about. You have a lot of starting here. One is a sound revolution, he wants to call it. Very nice. But Rav Aaron Kotler, who lived from 1892 to 1962, he was from Europe, and he wanted to rebuild the Jewish community. So he went to a little farming community called Lakewood, New Jersey. It was a farming community when he took over. He figured, let's get away from the big city. Let's go and we'll learn Torah. His desire, if I remember correctly, was to have 100 families learning. Well, today it's over 4,000 strong. Okay.
I read there's something like 6,000 something students.
Okay, 6,000, even better. 6,000, and as he grew, what he created was something that nobody ever thought would be recreated in this country, namely the yeshiva community. Okay, it was like a European community, but that's what he created.
How many actual Talmidim did he start with?
He was looking for 100. He didn't start with 800.
He just went there and started trying to recruit.
Yeah. Huh. I mean, he wasn't. He was still a big guy in his day. People knew him. So he had a name.
Today, what is the Jewish percentage of population in Lakewood today? Is more than 50%?
I don't know, but no. What do you say?
I don't know, but I would bet it's not 50%.
Okay, I'm not sure.
I mean, if you go to Lakewood, you got to look for the Jewish community. I mean, it's not just right there.
No. You don't have to look for it.
No, I mean, if you go through the main area of Lakewood, you don't see it.
Yes,
well, I know there's non-Jews still there.
I never saw it. I used to do parties down there.
Lakewood?
I never even saw Jews.
No, what? How many years ago?
12.
No, so we're talking about now. There's a massive growth.
Yeah.
You have over 6,000 families, and the Jewish people are getting into the government over there. So it's not such a small crowd.
I know. My wife's somebody at the stadium. They had kosher food there.
Okay, but I'm just saying. But he didn't go. Like I said, he went there for a quiet thing, and it grew into what it's grown into. It's a major juggernaut of learning there.
You go to downtown Lakewood, see black hats every place.
Right.
Every place.
Okay, let's go on, because I don't want to get stuck on that. Okay. So then you have, now, one of the major ways of integration for the American Jews were through the public schools. Okay? If you ever want to assimilate, that's the place to send your kids. You go to public school because everybody's there. You have all different stripes of the groups there. You have so you're going to be part of that. What they would also do, though, is they would send the kids to the cheder, which was a one-room schoolroom, if you will. Yeah. That's what cheder means, one-room schoolroom. And so you would go there and you would learn with the rabbi 2 hours a day or 2 hours every other day, once a week, whatever it was, to get you Jewish education, which of course never worked. There was the biggest flop in American history, or Jewish history, I should say. It never worked, it never will work, and yet that model is still used in places like South Bend, in places like Boston, and all over the place. That's what the conservative reform used to educate their kids, for the most part, the Hebrew school. It is the worst invention that we ever did, and it's the biggest plague. The 10 plagues wiped out the Egyptians. Hebrew school will wipe out the Jewish people, and I really am negative against it. Obviously, I don't hold my feelings back. I was a principal of these schools. They do not help. They only turn kids off.
Why is that? They turn them off?
Because you've gone to school from 8 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon. Then, while your friends are playing, you're going to the school and you're learning a language you will never in your life use except for your bar or bat mitzvah. You're learning things that your parents don't do. They're not keeping Shabbos for the most part. They're not going to synagogue. You're forced to sit in this chair for another hour or two, and so you have a very negative attitude, and my generation is not going to send their kids as much as our parents' generation. They had a guilt. We have to give our kids a Jewish education. Our generation doesn't feel that way, and so the Hebrew schools are falling away, as is affiliation with certain synagogues. Okay, so and that's why I'm really running this. No, because I'm really adamant against this. That's why today you have Orthodox day schools, conservative day schools, and Reformed day schools. All three have recognized that without the day school, without making an integral part of the day, you're going to lose big time. Okay, and so again, for all these schools that want to be out there, and I don't care who hears this. Hopefully they'll listen to me for once. They would just shut it down and not give the parents an opportunity to cheat their kids with education. Because I think you're ripping off the kids of their Jewish heritage.
No,
by
right.
going to
I was part of that, but I never looked at it that way.
That's what it is. That's what it is. You're ripping them off.
You go twice a week from after school for an hour and a half.
Right, and you learn absolutely nothing.
Well, they have basketball court beyond.
Right, okay.
So that's what was highlighted.
But like I said, now why the parents do this? Because they said we did this in the shtetl. But in the shtetl, they were religious, they were doing things at home and everything else. And on top of that, the non-Jews didn't like them. And they would beat them up. Here, we don't have that. We have non-Jewish friends.
What is, I know it's a complex because they had a huge building in New Jersey where the Solomon Schechter was.
Solomon Schechter is conservative.
No, I know it was conservative, but I used to do parties there for kids.
Right.
But the kids go there all day?
Yeah. Solomon Schechter means it's a day school. So part of the day they learn Hebrew, and part of the day they learn secular. This is split. All schools, it's a split.
So Solomon Schechter, in a sense, I didn't go there,
right,
was better than going to Hebrew school after public school.
Yeah. Yes. Anything is better than Hebrew school. Hebrew school is the greatest plague to the Jewish people, period.
How do you feel about that?
How do you feel about that? Again, anybody who's listening to this tape on YouTube, I could care less. Okay? Couldn't care less.
I know.
This is true. And people have to recognize it is the worst plague because it doesn't do anything. It turns people off. The teachers who teach, for the most part, you have some who actually are teachers, but when I was growing up, my teachers were meat cutters and people who didn't know anything. Okay? I'm not saying that meat cutters don't know anything, but I remember one guy was a meat cutter, and he didn't know anything. He didn't know how to answer simple questions because you're only being paid for 4 hours. Who do you expect to get for 4 hours? And you're paying lousy money. So you're not going to get anybody that really knows anything about Judaism.
And the kids are forced to go.
And the kids are forced.
We didn't want to go.
And you don't get, and you're not getting snacks. I mean, there's a whole mess that goes with that. It really is the most negative thing you can imagine.
Thrown out, so
Okay.
I looked at it.
No, but most people say, yes, I was thrown out. But on top of that, by the way, they also end at 13. When you have a bar mitzvah, it's over. You've graduated, and say Levi. I'm not interested anymore. And I don't see the shul until either I get married or somebody dies. Okay? For the most part. You have other people who, actually may do something, but for the most part, and anybody listening, they'll probably hate me for what I'm saying. I don't care. I don't care. I think it's important to be said. And I say it as many times as I can. It is no good. Okay, period. Sorry?
I've got to go.
Okay.
You offended him.
After that said, he's gone. he lost what he was told.
What about see if I get the joke right? Somebody builds a sukkah.
Right, sukkah, yeah.
It's not Jewish person says, you built the sukkah, it took you like a week. I mean, it's not a little one.
Right,
it
no.
costs you a lot of money, why are you doing this for a week?
Right.
Whatever. He says, you think that? You see that synagogue right there? That's only open 4 days a year.
Oh, okay.
For the high
Yeah, I hear that. Okay. No, but I'm saying that really was, but that was the reason behind the parents. The parents were thinking, we did this in Europe, we can do it here. But like I said, they didn't realize that in Europe, there was a lot of things that were different. Namely, the non-Jews hated the Jews, and we were kept separate. Okay, for the most part. And not in Germany, I'm talking about in Poland area, Polish areas. And even there, by the way, with all of their imaginings, they weren't producing strong Jews in Europe either. There was plenty of assimilation in Europe. And so when they finally realized, and one of the people responsible for this was, what's his name? Shrago Fabo Mendelovich, who formed Torah Masorah in 1944. He wanted to create a national system for Jewish day schools. Okay? Because he understood that without a proper education where the kids are going to see it, live it, and be imbued by it, it's not going to work. So even if the parents aren't doing it at home, they're still getting 5 days a week of this, and the kids are awake at this point. Their friends aren't playing outside. They're surrounded with other people who are Jewish. It's only Jews who go to day schools. You're not going to have non-Jews come to day schools. They go to parochial schools. We're separate, no question. Okay, so if I'm being brought up with the Jewish kids, and we're now going, and we're eating only kosher food, and we're doing these things, I have an opportunity, possibly, potentially, Mendelovich would have argued, to make these kids the next generation. What we're doing the other way was losing. Now, like I said, what happens is, within a decade of forming Torah Masorah, the conservative movement also recognized that. They weren't as successful and are not as successful to this very day of getting their kids to go to a day school, but they have the Solomon Chester Day School. First opened up in the 1950s. Okay? And why aren't they successful? Because the parents, for the most part, are not observant themselves. When it comes to the Orthodox, for the most part, again, I'm going most part, I'm not been speaking in generalities. For the most part, in the Orthodox world, the parents are following Jewish law. They do go to the synagogue. They do these things. They're very active. When it comes to the conservative, the parents who sent their kids, again, would be of that ilk. But the problem is most conservative Jews who affiliate aren't religious. And they say, why should I spend country club prices? Day schools cost $20,000 a year. That's where you're starting, okay? About $15,000 to $20,000 for the Schechter schools, okay? And so I have two kids. That's $40,000 a year. Maybe I can't get scholarships. Maybe I can't get scholarships. But then I'm afraid that my child will be only with Jews. He won't have non-Jewish friends. How can he be part of this country? Blah blah blah. So they didn't want to send the kids. It was a real fight to get people to join Solomon Schechter, which is why I say they're not as successful as the Jewish system, the Orthodox system, which is much more successful. We have day schools in crazy little places, okay? Because we realize that without this, we're not going to grow. The reform Also, this is very recent, maybe in the 80s, because that is so much against what they hold. When they were originally saying, no, we want to be part of society. We have to speak like the non-Jews. We're only a religious organization. We're not people. Blah blah blah. There was a whole thing. Remember, in the very beginning, this changed. This has changed. Now now even the reform say you have to be more religious if you want to maintain. I forget who I think Levy is this newest speaker, but it's even they agree that if I want to maintain Judaism, I have to bring some sort of action into it. So it's not good enough just to be ethical anymore. Now I have to actually keep a semblance of Shabbos. I have to do something with synagogue, and so on and so forth. So they made Rashi. That's what they named their day school, at least in Boston. I'm not sure if that's the national name, but Rashi day schools, where again the kids would go in and they would learn about Judaism and they would learn about secular studies. Everybody has to do the secular studies because that's part of the American system, and we all want our kids to be brought up. You have to know how to read, write, arithmetic. I can't speak arithmetic, algebra, and so on and so forth. Even if I never used algebra, my kids have to be tortured with that sort of thing. Yes, I don't care about algebra. Again, that's for the world out there. But all of those things, my brother will hit me for that because he likes algebra. But it's all those things have to be out there, and so all these movements saw the need for it. But again, to convince parents to spend the money when they're not really active themselves, it's not going to happen. That's why parochial schools have taken a dive, because most people are not religious Christians. And to have them being beaten up, using the old model of the nuns, or that whole thing, they say, I don't need that. That's only for Roman Catholics that have nuns, right?
Okay.
Are there,
Orthodox.
Greek Orthodox, okay. So, but you see the old movies where they hid and so on and so forth. That's the reputation they have. Now, hopefully that's not really what happens, but that's the reputation they have. But it's still, people don't want to send the kids to parochial school because they're saying, I don't live that life myself. Why spend the money when I'm paying for it anyway? It's via my taxes. I'll send it to my public school, and I'll deal with what they call alternate lifestyles. I'll deal with it, or I'll homeschool. Most people don't want to homeschool, but if that's the option they want to take, they can do that too.
But wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
I'm not defending it because as part of the Hebrew school joke. Wouldn't you say that at least Solomon Schechter is better than Hebrew school? And are the Hebrew schools?
I'm saying yes. No, I'm agreeing with that.
Yeah, no, I'm not arguing the point with you. Do these it's still in the cities? I know this not here. They still have the Hebrew schools twice a week, because over here I think they only have Sundays.
The answer is yes. Even when there's a Solomon Schechter in town, Hebrew school's not closed down because people still believe that that they can. You have to look. What is the purpose of?
Wait. The Hebrew schools, like when my parents belonged to a temple. I don't know. Did they have to pay for the Hebrew school twice a week?
Yes. You're paying for everything. Okay, you have to pay the teachers. You have to pay. But it's only $1,000, maybe $2,000 a year. Who cares? It's nothing. But what I'm saying is, what the parent has to decide for himself, or the parents have to decide for themselves, is what's the purpose of the education? Is it just so that my child can have a bar or bat mitzvah, and then I'm guilt free at that point?
Yes.
So that's the case. So we need to have a Hebrew school or private tutoring, because we're not going to send them to the day school. Okay, period. We're not interested in that. If they want to see their children thrive in Judaism, then yes, they'll send to a day school. And yes, any day school today is better than a Hebrew school.
Yeah,
Anyone, I don't care which one you want to send to a Rashi, send to Rashi. You want to send to Schechter. You want to send to Torah Masorah, YU. I don't care. Let the kids know that Judaism is important to you and practice at home. Otherwise, it doesn't work. And don't just stop at 8th grade. That's the mistake of Schechter, by the way. Schechter and Rashi stop at 8th grade. Only the Orthodox are the only ones I know of that have a high school. And only those kids have a chance of not intermarrying. Everybody else who goes through 8th grade, there's the same level of intermarriage as anybody else. 70%.
I remember in my Hebrew school, they did teach you how to read Hebrew. I didn't really.
Right.
You know, but I do remember the Shema.
They teach how to read and then read faster. That's
all. That's all.
No, they did teach you how to put tefillin on, but I didn't.
Okay. But I'm saying that's really what America was dealing with, okay? And how it's growing up. And that's really what's going on. There was this fight, and like I said, Hebrew school still will still continue because people want, for whatever reasons, they
shrinking. Because like we talked about a few weeks ago on Sunday, Reform and conservative, they're sickening.
Don't they have it over the conservative?
They have both. They have both conservative and
Sunday school now.
They have both.
Yeah,
Both conservative and reform have it.
They don't have after school.
I don't know.
I'm not sure.
I don't think they do.
Well,
they might.
I'm not sure. Okay.
Because what's his name will comes here once in a while. He teaches Sunday school there.
Okay. Kordemsky, right.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we're going to just touch on something else in 5 minutes. Okay. The changing role of women. This is going to be a 5-minute talk. Okay, right. Okay. Now, I'm going to skip all his introduction and let's get started. From a traditional historical perspective, the role of the Jewish woman has always been considered complementary to the man's role. In other words, we're both partners. I'm not better than the woman's not better than me. Spiritually, she is better than me, there's no question about it, which is why a woman is exempt from all positive time-bound commandments.
Go back to that sentence again.
That women are better than me, spiritually?
Yeah, no, you said it so fast.
Women are better than men spiritually, in the spiritual sense, because, and the proof of that is that they are exempted from all positive time-bound commandments, such as talis, tefillin, not having to go to minyan 3 times a day, not having to pray 3 times a day.
So why does that make them better?
Spiritually higher?
Yeah.
Because they're already connected to God. They're more connected to God than men are, naturally. They're naturally more connected to God.
I understand what you're saying, but I don't understand what makes them more connected to God.
So because they can...
I'm not arguing.
What I'll tell you is like this. I'm going to tell you like this. Philosophically, that's the way it is. The reasons that some people put across is because women have children, so they're connected through that life-giving force of being their partial creator with God. So they're on that level, which we never are. Okay, we can never do that. They, again, because of their bodies, they can feed the baby by themselves, which we can't do no matter what we do. Okay, and they are more in tune with spirituality than men. No matter who we are.
But not in a conservative or reform.
No, we're talking about general. I'm on general, Jim. Let's push the borders away for a second.
Okay.
We're saying in general, women are more tuned to spirituality, which is why women are more in the covens, which covens, which is why when women are more in the synagogue, when they feel that the synagogue is a place of spirituality, they're more in the synagogues than men. Which is why in the Reform movement they were dealing with this issue of where are the men? Where have all the men gone? Because we only have women. In the rabbinical system from conservative Reform, they claim, I don't know if it's true, they claim more women are going into those than the men at this point, because women are just more spiritual than men in general. In general, that's just a fact of life. Okay? And we can deny that all we want, but that's the reality. They are more spiritual than us.
If they're more spiritual,
okay.
Yeah. Now that they're exempted from these positive commands, can they still participate by their own choice?
Yeah. The short answer is yes. Okay? But let's push that away for a second. Okay, that's a different class. It really is an history class. That would be another class that we could do, and wouldn't be a problem. I'm offline for some reason. I don't know why. Okay. I'm not. No. Okay. So the. What was I saying? 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 Okay. So the. What was like I said, that's how you have to look at it. We're a partnership. We have to keep it going. Now, what happens is, because of all the things that came into being, namely feminism and so on and so forth, so we had to start answering a lot of questions to women. Namely, why aren't you in the synagogue, and so on and so forth. So the reform movement, way back, as far back as 1846, said that women and men would be equal, quote unquote equal. They denigrated the women and said, you're now equal to men. Okay? That's a denigration. You remember, you're higher than me spiritually. We're telling you you're equal now, which means they came down to, we actually insulted them. And we told them, now you can be part of the prayer quorum. Actually, if you're going to make part of the prayer quorum, it means you're obligated to come to communion, which means your connection to God is lessened. So really, I don't know why the women didn't get that they were being insulted, but for whatever reasons, they enjoyed it, okay? And then sooner or later, and I said before, as the Protestant world became mixed eating, so also the Reform and conservative world would follow that too, because originally in the Reform synagogues, it was also separate seating. It was only when they,
Reform?
yes,
Really?
everybody originally was separate seating,
Way back.
because that's how the world was.
It's about the 1800s.
Yeah. In 1921, the Hebrew Union College already acknowledged that technically there was no issue in ordaining a woman rabbi. 1921, but it took until 1972 to actually get the job done.
Why in the 1800s was it separate in the Reform?
Because everywhere was separate.
No, but why?
This is how the synagogue, this is how churches were even set up. Everybody was separate. It wasn't, you weren't supposed to be together. It wasn't, everybody was separate. I don't know other way to say that. It was just understood this is what worship was. It could be all based upon the temple, to where it was separate. It could be based upon that. I'm not sure why the church was separate. It probably was based upon that. Okay, but once the Protestant church decided that they would mix, and they came up with the famous thing of the family that prays together stays together. So that was a mixed views. Once that happened, the Reform said, well, great, we'll sit together. Nobody really understood why there was separate seating anyway to begin with. So they did that, fine. Like I said, Reconstructionists, they dealt with women's rights by holding the first bar mitzvah ever public like that in 1922. But, the Reconstructionist Rabbinical College did not ordain a woman until 1974. Here, they should have done it really early, and they needed the Reform to do it first. Reform was the first. So,
why such a delay?
You have to ask them. I have no idea. It makes no sense to me why they delayed at all, except for politics, and that's it. Because according to all these movements, and if you're making women equal in 1846, and you're saying that in 1921 there's no technicality that would forbid them from being a woman, why is it taking another 50 years to do it? I have no idea. It makes no sense to me. None whatsoever. Okay? And I ask anybody who can come up with a good answer, a real logical answer, by all means, make your own YouTube video. I don't know. I can't imagine. I don't think anybody has a really good reason. Okay? Conservative movement, again, they had to wait till 1985 to get their first woman rabbi. Okay? Orthodoxy, for the most part, has maintained that while there may be no technical problems, I don't even think that's even true. We do know there's a technical problem. One is that the woman can't be a judge. That's a biblical injunction. Okay? Since you have a biblical injunction that a woman can't be a judge, therefore, since a rabbi is a judge, a woman can't be a judge. A woman can't be a rabbi, period. Okay? That was actually the argument that Livni Weiss threw, which was conservative, throughout the conservative movement, but they ignored him. Okay? But and that's why he left the conservative movement to start his own conservative movement, traditional Judaism, whatever it was, Halivni Weiss, David Halivni Weiss. It was on that thing that he broke off, and on that issue specifically, okay? Not the other issues. And so, there's many other issues he could have broken off on, such as breaking Shabbos and driving on Shabbos. But he didn't break off. There's reasons that he had for that. But nonetheless, it's now Avi Weiss, just to really bring it up to modern day, Avi Weiss did ordain a woman called a Rabbi. So it's the first female rabbi ordained by an Orthodox rabbi. It would have been 2 years ago, I think, 2 or 3 years ago. So
his summation was Orthodox, yeah?
yes, he has Orthodox smicha, so he used some things to put together. He also has to deal with the same problem that Hillel Weiss had to deal with, or the conservative movement. Namely, she can't be a judge, she can't be a witness, she can't perform she can't be a witness to any.
He was threatened with excommunication.
No, I forget what he's threatened with. But I'm saying she cannot be a witness to a wedding or anything. Okay, so Sarah Horowitz is her name, by the way. Sarah Horowitz. Okay, so she was the first. Whether or not there's going to be others coming up behind her, I have no idea.
I read that he, under pressure, he agreed not to do it again. He's calling them something else.
Yeah, so it doesn't mean anything. You can call it what you want.
Right, that's what I
Call it what you want. Right.
She is not recognized by anybody else with an Orthodox is.
Again, call him what you want, but he tried to break through that, and so what he's figuring is, and I'm speaking for Avi Weiss, and I have no right to do that, but he's probably figuring in 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, whatever it's going to take, is that she too will be accepted and it'll be a normal thing. That's probably what he's trying to do.
So she's still active?
She works at his synagogue.
In New York?
Yeah, in Riverdale.
Yeah.
She's working at his synagogue. I hold like this, a very simple thing. The marketplace will speak for itself. If people are going to want women rabbis, then they'll hire them for whatever purposes they can be used for. Again, they can't make a minyan, they can't read the Torah, they can't do this, they can't do that. So what will the shul hire them for? I have no idea. But that's what's going to change. I'm saying the synagogue has to make that decision who they want to be the spiritual leader. Do they want the spiritual leader also be able to count in a minyan? If that's the case, now even Avi Weiss is saying this. He's not saying anything strange. What he's saying is that she can be in a leadership role. Period. Okay, people want to take it out of context, but that'll defend Avi Weiss. He's not saying that she should run a minyan. He's not saying she should do anything against halacha. But what he's simply saying, as far as I understand it, is that she can be a leader, a spiritual leader. That's possible. Okay? We'll stop there.